Okay, let's unpack this.
So today, we're diving deep into the sources to explore some really sophisticated unconscious mechanisms, the kind that govern our fundamental social lives.
Right, the stuff happening under the hood. And we're tackling two big ones that seem completely unrelated at first glance.
Exactly. First, why we have this natural, really visceral aversion to mating with close family members. And second, something a bit different, why we cry.
And the mission here is to find the evolutionary logic, the unified theory that connects these powerful gut feelings.
That's it. It all comes back to this hidden architecture of social cost and value.
So let's start with incest avoidance. This is a huge topic. Why do we have this deep-seated, almost automatic sexual aversion to our siblings?
Well, it's not just a cultural rule that someone wrote down. It's a biological mechanism. The sources call it an inbreeding avoidance system.
A system, so it has a purpose.
It has two, actually. And this is where evolution gets really economical. The first purpose is the obvious one.
Yeah.
It stops us from mating with close kin.
Which we know leads to a higher risk of harmful genetic mutations, less healthy offspring.
Precisely. The genetic cost of a bad roll of the dice is just too high. So the system is designed to trigger this intense psychological disgust to, override any potential attraction.
Okay, so that's purpose one, avoid bad genes. What's the second?
The second is just as critical. It actually facilitates altruism towards those same relatives.
Ah, so it's two sides of the same coin.
It is. Following Hamilton's theory of inclusive fitness, we're wired to be helpful to people who share our genes. So the brain runs this one core kinship estimate for every person we meet.
And that single number tells it two things.
It tells it the level of kindness and help to offer and the level of sexual avoidance to maintain. One calculation, two outputs.
That is an elegant solution. The same mechanism says protect this person, they're valuable, and also this person is absolutely forbidden.
It's incredibly efficient.
But hold on, if that biological brake pedal is so strong, why do cultures all over the world have these massive, heavy-duty prohibitions against incest? Doesn't that mean the biology isn't always reliable?
That's a great question, and it's a crucial distinction. The biology provides the strong aversion, the gut feeling.
But the culture provides the law.
Exactly. The cultural rule, the taboo, it acts as a massive deterrent for anyone whose biological signals might be, well, a bit weak. But more importantly, it provides what you could call the observer effect.
The fear of getting caught.
The certainty that if you break this rule, the entire community will condemn you. It's an evolutionary backstop.
I see. So the system works, but the taboo makes sure everyone stays in line.
Yeah.
So how does the brain actually compute kinship? Animals have it easy, right? Smell, being in the same litter.
Right. Humans are more complex. We map our social rules onto a few really fundamental evolutionary cues, especially in the nuclear family.
Let's break those down. The easiest one first. How does a child know who its mother is?
That's the most reliable cue as all, mainly because of the huge investment. The child's brain essentially imprints on the female who is consistently nursing or breastfeeding them.
That shared resource is the signal. Unmistakable.
Absolutely.
The father, though. That's the classic problem of paternity certainty.
Indeed. For the child's brain, identifying the father is much trickier. It has to rely on indirect cues.
Like what?
Like observing which male is consistently investing resources in them, and which male was just there very early on, acting as a protector. And the father's brain is running its own version of that calculation, too.
What about physical resemblance? The whole phenotype mashing idea. If someone looks like me, they must be related.
It's an interesting hypothesis, and there's some evidence for it, but it's probably not a primary cue for close kin.
Why not?
Well, think about it ancestrally. In a small group, pretty much everyone looked quite similar anyway. Plus, facial features are governed by a pretty small number of genes. Your sibling might look nothing like you, and a stranger might look just like you by pure chance.
So it's just not a reliable signal.
Not for close kin, no. But the system is always looking for some kind of overlap. The sources point out that sharing any feature, even something as random as having a similar name.
Your naming effect.
Right. That can trigger a little bit of kinship behavior, a little bit of cooperation. It's like the brain defaults to connection when it finds any shared trait at all.
Okay, that brings us to the big one. Siblings. The research you sent over outlines two distinct cues depending on whether you're the older or younger sibling. What's the cue for the older sibling?
For the older sibling, it all comes down to observing maternal investment. The older child has already locked in who mom is.
Right.
So the unmistakable cue that a new baby is your sibling is seeing that specific woman, your mom, caring for it, giving birth to it, or, most powerfully, breastfeeding it. You see the parental investment being shared.
And the key thing here is that this works even if they aren't actually related by blood. You can trick the system.
You can. And that takes us straight to this incredible natural experiment from Taiwan, the practice of minor marriage.
Okay, explain that.
So a family would adopt a baby girl, and the mother of the house would often even breastfeed her. And they'd raise this girl alongside their own son.
With the plan that they'd get married later.
Exactly. But for the son, the older pseudo-sibling, his brain is seeing all the cues. He's watching his mother nurse and care for this little girl.
So his kinship mechanism fires. It tags her as sister.
That's right. His brain registers them as siblings and therefore sexually off limits. And even though cultural pressure was immense, and many of them did get married,
The marriages didn't go well.
not at all. They had way higher rates of divorce, more extramarital affairs, and this is the kicker. They had fewer children than couples in traditional arranged marriages.
Wow. So the deep biological signal just completely overrode the cultural command. The aversion was so powerful, it actually suppressed reproduction.
A signal, once it's set that early, is incredibly hard to ignore.
Okay, so that's the older sibling's cue. What about the younger one? They weren't there to see the older sibling being born or nursed. This gets us to the Westermarck effect.
Yes. For the younger sibling, the mechanism relies on a different measurement. Co-residence duration.
Just how long you've lived under the same roof.
That's it. The younger sibling's brain is tracking how long that older kid has been around, getting that same shared parental investment, especially from the mother. Each year you live together adds more certainty to the calculation. This person is a genetic relative.
So the longer you co-reside, the stronger the altruism gets, but also the stronger the sexual disgust. It's a dial that gets turned up by time.
A dial or a switch that gets locked into place. And it's important to remember this is mostly an observer effect. It's about seeing who gets care. It doesn't really operate for, say, a father recognizing his daughter in the same way. That's a different set of cues.
And this all leads us right into the modern world where things get complicated, like the sperm bank scenario. You have donor half-siblings who meet for the first time as adults.
Right. In that case, absolutely no sexual aversion system gets activated.
Because none of the cues were there.
Neither one. No shared maternal observation. No long childhood co-residence. The brain has no data to put that person in the sexually forbidden file. And even if you tell them, hey, this is your biological sibling, that information alone isn't enough to trigger the gut-level disgust.
And this is the context for what people call genetic sexual attraction, or GSA.
It is, and it's so often misunderstood. People think it's some dark Freudian thing.
But the data suggests something else.
Completely. GSA is much more likely the result of shared genes leading to really similar tastes and personalities, but in the complete absence of that incest avoidance mechanism.
So break that down for me.
Okay, so we know from behavioral genetics that something like 50% of your personality, your humor, what foods you like, your politics, it's shaped by your genes.
Right.
So when you meet a long-lost relative as an adult and that biological brake pedal is missing, they seem like a perfect match. They feel like a soulmate because psychologically they're already 50% aligned with you.
That's a stunning insight. It's not an attraction because they're related. It's an attraction because they're so compatible, and the normal stop sign isn't there.
It completely bypasses the normal search for a compatible partner.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Let's push on this disgust response with that famous thought experiment, moral dumbfounding. The Mark and Julie scenario.
Ah, yes. The consensual protected sex between adult siblings.
Or nobody is harmed, nobody finds out. The question is it wrong?
And overwhelmingly, people say, yes, it's wrong. Instantly. But then when you press them for a reason, a rational justification, they can't find one.
They grasp at straws, but the condom might break, even after you've told them it won't.
Exactly. Their strong intuition of disgust just short-circuits their ability to make a logical argument. The expert take on this is that the wrongness people feel isn't really about the potential harm to Mark and Julie.
It's about something else.
It's about the fear of breaking a powerful social rule. The reaction is less about morality as preventing harm and more about morality as preserving your status and avoiding condemnation from the tribe.
Wow. So our moral compass might be guided less by actual harm and more by a fear of social judgment.
That's a big part of it, yes. We're wired to avoid the social cost of transgression.
And that phrase, social cost, is a perfect bridge to our second topic. We've talked about disgust signaling a high genetic cost. Now let's look at tears, which are all about social cost.
Right, or a big imbalance of leverage. The logic is still all about social value and cooperation. You can actually start with gratitude.
Gratitude, how does that connect?
Well, gratitude is the emotion that helps you identify when someone else values you. It reinforces their good behavior and helps you start friendships and alliances.
Okay, so gratitude finds you good partners. Where do tears come in?
Tears are a tool, specifically a tool for the lower leveraged.
Meaning the person with less power in a situation.
Exactly. The person who is less physically formidable has lower status, less power. If you can't get your way through dominance or negotiation, you have tears.
It's a communication tool.
A communication tool to express the intensity of your state. It sends one of two signals. Either you are imposing too much of a cost on me, or, in happy tears, this benefit you're giving me is incredibly valuable.
So it's a way to get someone to stop doing something bad or keep doing something good when you have no other way to persuade them.
That's the core function. It's a low-leverage negotiation tactic. We see it in kids all the time. They have no real leverage, so tears are their most powerful signal.
This idea of leverage also helps explain the sex differences we see in crying, right?
It does. Ancestrally, women faced much higher costs for bad decisions. 9 months of pregnancy, years of lactation. This means selection would favor a high sensitivity to being put in a costly or risky situation. And this often plays out in managing leverage, particularly with what some call angry crying.
That feeling, the tension of it.
Yes, when a person is angry but feels out-leveraged, maybe they know they're right, but they don't have the status to win the argument, they might tear up. It's this very specific unconscious signal.
What's it signaling?
It's signaling, if I had the muscle or the social power, I would confront you forcefully. But since I don't, these tears are the strongest signal I have that you've gone too far. It's a nonverbal protest.
That makes perfect sense for social situations. But what about when we cry alone? Watching a movie, reading a sad book, who are we signaling to then?
The leading theory is simulation. Our brains are constantly running these social dramas in our heads, preparing for the future.
So it's like a dress rehearsal.
In a way, yes. The ancestral brain doesn't always make a clean distinction between a really vivid mental image and a real event. So crying alone could be a way of practicing an emotional response or an extreme empathy reaction where we're simulating the pain of a loved one.
We're stress testing our social software. So final question on this. Why tears? Why water from the eyes? Why not some other signal?
A few ideas there. One, it's front and center. Impossible to ignore. Two, it might have been bootstrapped off a basic physical response, like your eyes watering when you cut an onion. It co-opted an existing signal for distress.
But the real reason has to be about its cost.
Absolutely. That's a third and most important point. It's a costly signal. When you cry, you temporarily blur your vision. You make yourself vulnerable.
Which proves it's an honest signal.
It proves authenticity. It says, this emotional state is so real and so intense that I am willing to sacrifice my ability to see threats. It forces the other person to take you seriously.
This has all been about our brains tracking cost, value, and leverage. Before we wrap, I have to ask about that one speculative but really fascinating idea you included about crying after a breakup.
The chemical data dump theory.
Yes, tell us about that.
Well, it's just a hypothesis, but the idea is that when a relationship ends, your brain has to process that your value to that other person has just crashed to zero.
Okay.
So the intense, uncontrollable crying might literally be a physical mechanism to flush out the attachment chemicals, oxytocin, vasopressin, that were tied to that person. An involuntary biochemical reset to help you recalibrate after that huge loss of value.
That is a wild idea. It would take a lot of research and a lot of tears to prove.
It would. But it fits the broader model of our emotional lives being governed by these deep biochemical cost-benefit analyses.
So if we bring this all together for our listener, what does it all mean? It seems our entire social world, from who we love to who we're kind to how we show sadness, it's all being secretly run by these ancient, unconscious algorithms.
It is. The disgust we feel, the tears we cry, they aren't just cultural habits. They're specific biological signals honed over millennia to manage cost, value, and survival.
The sources mention something interesting. Cousin marriage is actually very common worldwide. The genetic risks drop off so fast outside the immediate family. So here's a final thought. If our moral compass about this stuff is guided by such specific aversion cues that basically disappear past the sibling relationship, to what extent are we even capable of making a purely rational moral judgment? Or is a lot of our morality just, sophisticated, unthinking disgust?
That is the question to carry forward, and it's exactly the kind of question that foundational work in evolutionary psychology is trying to answer.
We'll leave you to chew on that one. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.